The hospital room was sterile, cold, and suffocatingly quiet, save for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. Ethan Caldwell, a man whose name commanded boardrooms and headlines, stood frozen, staring at the woman lying in the bed. Her face was bruised, her eyes closed, and a tangle of tubes snaked around her. The doctor's words echoed in his mind, each syllable a sledgehammer. "She was here yesterday, Mr. Caldwell." "And she's your wife." His wife? Ethan's knees buckled. He hadn't seen Amelia in 10 years. Not since the night she vanished, leaving behind a note that shattered his heart. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore." How could she be here, in a hospital bed, fighting for her life? And why didn't he know? The room spun as Ethan gripped the edge of a chair, the weight of a decade's worth of unanswered questions crashing over him. This was no ordinary reunion. This was a reckoning. Ethan Caldwell was a self-made millionaire, a titan in the tech industry whose app revolutionized how people connected online. At 38, he was the picture of success: sharp suits, a penthouse in Manhattan, and a reputation for being untouchable. But beneath the polished exterior, Ethan carried a wound that never healed. 10 years ago, he had been married to Amelia Harper, a fiery, brilliant woman with dreams bigger than the stars. They met in college, two dreamers with nothing but ambition and each other. Ethan was building his first startup, Amelia was studying art history, determined to open a gallery that celebrated forgotten artists. Their love was electric, the kind that made the world feel conquerable. But as Ethan's company skyrocketed, their marriage crumbled. Late nights turned into missed dinners, then missed anniversaries. Amelia begged him to slow down, to choose her over the empire he was building. He promised he would tomorrow. Always tomorrow. Until one day, she was gone. Her note had been brief, written in her elegant script: "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Don't look for me." Ethan did look, though. He hired private investigators, scoured social media, called every friend and relative she had. Nothing. Amelia had vanished like a ghost. For years, he drowned his guilt in work, building his empire higher to escape the emptiness. He told himself she was happy somewhere, living the life she wanted without him. But now, standing in this hospital room, he realized he'd been wrong. Amelia hadn't just left him, she'd been running from something. Or someone. The doctor, a kind-eyed woman named Dr. Patel, explained what little she knew. Amelia had been brought in the previous night after a hit-and-run accident. She'd been crossing a street in Brooklyn when a car sped through a red light, leaving her unconscious. Her ID listed her as Amelia Harper, no mention of Caldwell, and an emergency contact number that led nowhere. But a nurse recognized her from a local shelter where Amelia had been volunteering. "She was here yesterday," the nurse had said, "helping with the kids' art program." She never mentioned a husband. Ethan's mind reeled. Volunteering? Shelters? This wasn't the Amelia he knew, the one who dreamed of glittering galleries and world travel. What had happened to her, as Ethan sat by her bedside, holding her hand, still soft, but now calloused in ways he didn't recognize? He pieced together the fragments. The hospital staff whispered about Amelia's life. She'd been living in a modest apartment, working odd jobs, and pouring her heart into helping others. She was beloved in the community, a quiet angel who never spoke of her past. Ethan felt a pang of shame. He'd assumed she'd left to chase a glamorous life, but instead, she'd chosen one of purpose. Why hadn't she reached out? Why hadn't she told him? The answer came in a memory, their last fight, when she'd screamed, "You don't see me, Ethan. You see your company, your legacy, but not me." He dismissed her, too consumed by his ambition to listen. Now, he wondered if she'd left to protect herself from a life that was suffocating her. Days passed, and Amelia remained in a coma. Ethan refused to leave her side, canceling meetings and ignoring his buzzing phone. His assistant, Priya, pleaded with him to take care of himself, but Ethan was resolute. "I lost her once," he said. "I won't do it again." He began digging into Amelia's life, visiting the shelter where she volunteered. There, he met Maria, a single mother who owed her life to Amelia. "She helped me get clean," Maria said, tears in her eyes. "She saw something in me when no one else did." Ethan learned Amelia had been funding art supplies for the shelter's kids out of her own pocket, even when she barely had enough to eat. Each story painted a picture of a woman who had rebuilt herself from the ashes of their marriage, not out of spite, but out of necessity. The challenge was overwhelming. How could Ethan bridge the gap of 10 years? He wasn't the same man who'd let her slip away, but would she believe that? He started small, bringing her favorite flowers, sunflowers, to the hospital room, playing her favorite songs softly in the background. He talked to her, recounting memories of their early days, the time they got caught in a rainstorm and danced under a streetlight, the nights they stayed up planning a future that seemed unbreakable. "I'm here now, Amelia," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." One evening, as Ethan read aloud from a book of poetry she'd once loved, Amelia's fingers twitched. He froze, heart pounding, as her eyelids fluttered. "Amelia," he said, voice breaking. Her eyes opened, hazy at first, then sharpening as they met his. For a moment, there was no recognition, just confusion. Then, a whisper, "Ethan?" The sound of his name on her lips undid him. Tears streamed down his face as he nodded. "I'm here. I'm so sorry, I'm here." The days that followed were a delicate dance. Amelia was weak, her recovery slow, but her mind was sharp. She didn't shy away from the truth. "I left because I was losing myself," she told him one night, her voice steady but soft. "You were building something incredible, but I felt like a shadow in your world. I needed to find out who I was without you." Ethan listened, really listened, for the first time in years. He admitted his failures, the way he'd prioritized success over love. "I thought I was building a life for us," he said, "but I was building it without you." Amelia's eyes softened, but she didn't absolve him. Not yet. The turning point came when Ethan brought her a sketchbook from the shelter, filled with drawings by the kids she'd taught. One drawing, by a girl named Lily, showed Amelia as an angel with sunflowers in her hair. "They miss you," Ethan said. "And I see now what you've done for them. You've built something too, Amelia, a legacy of kindness." For the first time, Amelia smiled, a real smile, and Ethan felt a spark of hope. Recovery was a marathon, not a sprint. Amelia moved back into their old apartment, not as husband and wife, but as two people trying to understand each other. Ethan stepped back from his company, delegating to focus on what mattered. They went to therapy, unraveling years of hurt and misunderstanding. It wasn't easy. There were days when Amelia's anger flared, when Ethan's guilt threatened to drown him. But they faced it together, learning to see each other as they were now, not as ghosts of the past. 1 year later, Ethan stood in a small community center, watching Amelia unveil a new art program for underprivileged kids, funded by a foundation he'd started in her name. The room was filled with laughter, color, and life. Amelia's life, the one she'd chosen. As she spoke to the crowd, her eyes found his, and she smiled. It wasn't the end of their story, but a new beginning.